Hey folks, Chris Simmons again with CreateInsights.com. In this insight, we're going to talk about value-based video production services and how selling based on value can make you more money. I have a neighbor and good friend who owns a small handyman service. In fact, the business is made up of him and his van, yet he seems to do very well for himself. I hired him to fix up my new office space, and during that time he and I started talking about business. I asked how he was able to do so well providing basic handyman, painting, and landscaping services. His response was that he sells based on value, not based on time. I know what that means for my business as a videographer, but I was curious what he meant, so I encouraged him to continue. He said, "See, I know that other painters in the area will charge close to $500 to paint and fix up a room like this. I've done this type of work for more than 20 years, and I know I can finish a room this size in less than 4 hours. So I charge $350 plus materials, which puts me well under the competition. But I'm still making about $87.50 an hour for my efforts. In situations where I need to charge even less in order to secure the job, I can because I have very little overhead." He continued to say that he is much happier when he's busy all the time, and it keeps him focused on his plan instead of wasting time thinking about other entrepreneurial activities that take money out of his pocket instead of putting it in. I can relate. He and I both have 4 kids, and his will start college next year and will continue to enter college every 2 years after that. My daughter starts in 2 years, then I'll have a little break, but either way, I'm paying tuition for the next 20 years. That's a lot of videos, friends. For a videographer or any type of small business owner like my neighbor, being busy with projects all the time equals more happy customers. More happy customers equal more referrals. More referrals equal more business. The cycle continues as your business grows exponentially without you really having to try. One of the keys to success is to apply basic supply and demand principles to your video business. If you are slammed with video projects and you continue to get calls from people wanting you to work with them, your supply is low, but the demand is high for your services. Therefore, if you choose to accept additional work, you need to charge more than usual so you can afford to bring on help to complete the task, or so you can justify in your own mind, or in the mind of your spouse, that it's worth working after hours and on weekends to finish the project. In times when you aren't working on anything, your supply is high and the demand is low for your services. Therefore, when a prospect calls wanting you to work on a project for them, price it in a way that will guarantee you get the work. It's better to quote lower than normal rate and get the business than to quote your normal fee and lose it. You know, the only caveat here, though, is if the project won't begin for another several months or so. In those cases, I recommend you quote closer to your normal fee. I've experienced on many occasions the issues associated with quoting low today for a project that won't start for 3 or 4 months. Then, when that project finally begins, I'm slammed with much higher paying work, and it's frustrating to think about how am I going to handle this lower paying project. At the same time, I'm making a lot of money and generating a lot of profit on these better paying gigs. I can't tell you how many times I see videographers get contacted by dozens of prospects each month, yet can't figure out how to get the contract. If you're being approached by clients and you aren't winning the business, odds are good there's a problem either with your price or your marketing. Try reducing your price first to see if that solves the problem. If it doesn't, you're marketing to the wrong people, or you really need to improve your finished product. There are numerous ways you can adjust your production process to make it easier to deliver your product at a lesser price. Only you can judge what you're comfortable with here, but my experience is that work breeds work. So if the first couple projects are won because of a lower rate, then several much higher paying projects will come right behind it, so it all works out in the end with more happy customers, more referrals, and ultimately more business for your video production company. So I want to take a minute just to kind of debunk a myth. I mean, you hear all the time other videographers or just people in service industries as a whole say, you know, once you charge a particular price, you can't ever change it. So if you would normally charge $1,000 to go out and shoot for a day, don't offer the job for $750 or don't offer to shoot for $750, because then every time in the future that client's going to expect to pay $750. It's simply not true. It's based on supply and demand. You tell the customer, hey, I'll gladly do this for $750. We're not real busy right now. I'd love to have your business. And then maybe in the future, if we work together again, I might have to be closer to my normal rate of $1,000 a day. And usually what that means is that they work with you at the $750 at the reduced rate. They like you, they like your work, and then next time they're not going to have a problem paying the $1,000 for you to work for them. And worst case scenario, if they say, you know, we're just not going to pay $1,000, then it's really up to you to decide, you know what, I'd rather have $750 in my pocket than to not have any money at all. And really even more important than that, I'd rather have $750 in my pocket every time that client wants to hire a shooter than to give that $750 to one of my competitors. When you're building a business, particularly a successful business, you have to keep in mind multiple streams of income. You have to have multiple revenue sources coming into your business in order for you to be cash flow positive, in order for you to make a lot of money and to really enjoy what you're doing. And part of that is, in some cases, you may have those customers that doesn't pay you quite as much as you'd like to make, but when you tally it up at the end of the year, that customer might be worth $4,000 or $5,000 to your business. They might be worth $10,000, $20,000 to your business. So think lifetime value of that customer as opposed to being short-sighted with, well, this is how much I'm going to charge today, or this is what I'd like to charge, and since they want to pay me $200 less, then I'm not going to take the project. So, like my friend, the handyman, what are some things you can do as a videographer to sell based on value instead of hourly service? Here are some of my tactics. If something's only going to take a few minutes to do, I'll charge a minimum of $150. So if a client says, I want some DVD copies, I want to encode this video to this particular format, I just want to change a title in a video, even if it's only going to take 5 minutes, you have to set a minimum fee. If you don't set a minimum fee, then you can get bogged down in minutia of $5 here, $10 there, and you don't want to do that. So my minimum fee to do anything is $150. Basically, I try to charge that because if I can get it, that's great. If they don't want to pay that, that's fine, because I don't want to get bogged down all day with $50 projects that won't really get me anywhere financially. Think about the value that you're providing here as well. Of course it's worth $150 for a client to get their marketing video converted to a file they can use on their website or upload to YouTube, even if it only took you 10 minutes to do it. How about creating that DVD loop they'll use in their trade show booth? Yep, definitely worth the money, since it will help them demonstrate their products and services. I mean, come on, if they sell one, they make thousands of dollars. In some cases, it could even be upwards of $1 million that your simple little service is going to generate for them by you providing that. So of course it's worth that minimum fee. The next tactic I use is, if something will only take a couple hours to shoot or edit, I try to charge at least a half-day rate if I think the client will appreciate the value of what I'm doing. So a 2-hour edit becomes a half-day edit rate. It's easier to get it if you promise a lightning-fast turnaround and deliver on it. The other thing to consider is that a 2-hour edit is really never a 2-hour edit. There are often changes, delays in the client getting back to you, etc. So by charging more for the same service, you will actually get paid for all the time you invest in the project. Same goes for a shoot. In my experience, shoots almost always go longer than planned. And when you've only quoted for 2 hours, try getting your client to pay for 3 or 4. It's not always a pleasant experience. So in my opinion, charge that half day, charge that full day. If a client has an issue and they says, it's really only going to take 2 hours for you to show up and shoot this thing, my response to that is, well, Mr. Client, I understand that. However, we've got time to get the equipment ready. We've got travel time out there, set up, shooting. Then we've got to come back, and then we've got to put all the equipment back on the shelf. Plus, once I've dedicated that time slot to you, I can't sell it to any other client. I can't sell, if I'm working shooting for you from 8 to 10 in the morning, I can't sell from 10 to noon to another customer. So I have to charge that half day edit just to make sure that it covers all of our time that is spent on a particular shoot on your particular project. So the last tactic I recommend is to think about the video services you are very efficient with and spend more time marketing those services. If there's a certain type of web video you can knock out in a couple hours, odds are good you can get $500 to $800 for it. I routinely charge and get $650 for a web video package that only takes 3 hours to produce. And when I'm not busy with larger projects, all I have to do to get work flowing again is pick up the phone or start blasting my email list with an offer to produce these videos. Then, once I start knocking those videos out, it's amazing how the calls start coming in for work with much higher price tags. It's crazy sometimes how well this strategy works. The whole point is, like I said before, work breeds work. So do what you have to do to get jobs in the door, to stay busy with that whole supply and demand. Once you get busy, it's amazing how those bigger projects are going to start coming in. Work breeds work. I can't say that enough. The other thing is, when you are bringing those projects in, really try hard to set those minimum fees to try to get that half-day rate or that full-day rate so that you can be covered for all the time you spend in every aspect of the project. Like I said, the point is, do what you have to do to get the jobs in your door for that client to become your client. Don't let them become another videographer's client because you didn't want to do it for a couple $100 less than what they were willing to pay. So just so there's no confusion, if I have the opportunity to tell the client, Mr. Client, this is what I charge for this kind of service, and it might be a half hour worth of work that I'm going to charge $150 for, if they agree to that, then I'm going to take that and it's going to be a good profit for my business. If they say, well, Chris, we're only comfortable paying $100 for that service, then I'm probably going to say, you know what? I'll gladly do that. We normally charge $150, but I'd really like to have your business, so I would certainly appreciate it at the $100 level. And then hopefully in the future we can find other ways to work together. So what I've done is I've brought in a client who potentially can be a long-term revenue source for my business, and I've kept it from going to one of my competitors.